Hey, the one true flame here once more. With all computers, alien technology. Some say yes, others say no. Others say don't give me that type of shit. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with the article. The Greys, Hollow Earth and computer technology. Those of you who have looked into conspiracy theories, paranormal research and UFO logic will no doubt have come up beings living in the underground cities and bases, and that there are vast networks of tunnels and caves deep on the ground. In fact, those who believe that some of the so-called alien beings that are known about are not from other planets or dimensions at all, but are actually from this world, but they have been living deep beneath the surface, and that is why we know so little about them. One alternative historian and dedicated researcher of conspiracies and mysteries is Freeman, who presents the Freeman perspective, and he believes that Greys are actually from this planet and are an inner Earth race and not an outer space one. Reptilians and Scions. Freeman discusses his views in some detail on the accompanying video, wherever that might be. If I find it, I'll be posting it here, in which he also talks about the Scions and the Reptilians, or the Deco, as being the two main alien races in charge of security, secretly running this planet. He also discussed the Marfolk, or First People, who these beings were. They were known to the Dogon tribe in Africa, as well as being mentioned by many other sources. The Pope wears gear shaped like a fish head. Freeman puts forward the idea that the computers we are using are actually a technology we got from the Greys. He points out that everything in them is made from materials found underground. Well, duh! He believes that this technology was created by a race of beings who live below the surface. His view is not as bizarre as it may sound if you search the information available on this subject. There is also the idea, commonly held by some ufologists and conspiracy theorists, that the Greys made a deal with the other governments, a trade of advanced technology in return for being able to abduct and experiment on a small number of humans. In the Hopi belief system, that are beings in the inner Earth known as Ant-People. Images of them bear a strange resemblance to what people today call Greys. The Hopi legends say that at the end of an age, some of these are protected by underground to the world of the Ant-People. In Wikipedia, in the section on Hollow Earth, it states, in 1964, Raymond W. Bernard, an esoterist, I think that might be eco-terrorist, and leader of the Worship Creations Ocean be published by the Hollow Earth and the greatest geographically discovered in the history made by the Admiral Richard E. Byrd in the Mysteries Land Beyond the Poles. The true origin of the flying saucers. Admiral Richard E. Byrd of the United States Navy flew to the North Pole in 1926 and over the South Pole in 1929. In this diary, he tells of entering the hollow interior of the Earth along with others and traveling 70 miles over mountains, lakes, rivers, and green vegetation and animal life. When we think about how incredible computers are and how they achieve almost miraculous results in conjugation with the internet, it is very easy to think this sort of technology was not originally invented by humans. Perhaps Freeman is right. So yeah, there's a video down below underneath this. So, you better watch the video.
So, our special guest, Freeman, you have had first-hand experience with UFOs.
I have.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Pretty much all my life.
All your life, from how young were you? Like the youngest you can remember?
Well, honestly, as a child, all I remember is me and my friends discussing the UFOs that we saw. Mm-hmm. And then I have what I now recognize as cover memories.
Okay.
Which are memories that seem to be placed in during abduction scenarios that don't quite fit. And so I have one where I ended up a dancing bear out while taking out the trash. and
Wow.
I just went off into this, hypnagogic state. I don't know where I was, but I had this vision of me as a dancing bear while I was taking out the trash. Now, what happened was that when I came back in, I felt like a lot of time had passed. My body felt that way, but my mind didn't know.
Wow.
And so all of these type of experiences going on, when I was 10 years old, I ended up drawing this picture. And this has really been the crux of my investigation. And I guess we could show this.
Okay.
This picture I drew when I was 10 years old, which ended up being somewhat of a remote viewing experiment or experience, where I drew all these space shuttles fighting what seems to be a flying serpent, and then this spiral, what I thought was a spiral galaxy in the center. Now, for 20 years, I've had this picture, well, now longer, and I've been researching it, and I have found some really interesting stuff to correlate with all of this. But it didn't come to light until after I had an abduction scenario.
Okay. So what was that abduction scenario?
It was quite odd. This was many, many years later. Now I'm in college.
Okay.
Okay, so this is 10 years old. I drew this picture. I knew nothing about what I was drawing, but then we'll explain it a little more later.
Okay.
Because there's some amazing things, and we'll show you some film footage from the Columbia Space Shuttle and their UFO encounter, or multi-UFO encounter.
Okay.
But my own personal experience was after college, and I went down to Daytona Beach for spring break, and there was just thousands of people milling up and down Daytona Beach and having a great time. Well, we decided to go down to the beach first instead, before we went to the party. And standing at the beach, if you want to bring up that first picture, as we were standing on the beach, a large rectangular craft came and hovered over the ocean.
Wow.
And it was sitting there just looking like a giant rectangle with the 4 subdivided squares of red translucent light. And we were sitting on the beach just looking at this going, oh my God.
Is this a reproduction or is this the actual photograph?
No, this is an artwork that I did to try and encapsulate the picture, yeah, to give you an idea of what I was seeing. The thing was massive.
Wow.
It was amazing, and it was a rectangle. It wasn't, you know, a flying saucer or anything else, and I've never seen a craft or heard one described like this ever before.
Yeah, I've always heard of the cigar-shaped or the round
or the big flying V's.
Yeah, but I've never heard of a rectangle.
So was no one else on the beach
No,
except for you and your friends?
Me and my friend were the only ones.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you said a lot of people.
Well, no. There were thousands of people walking just 2 blocks behind us. You know, the strip on Daytona goes right there, and then you have the beach. And so there's all the people partying for spring break, and we decide to go down to the beach and just, you know, kick it for a minute before we go to the bar.
There you go.
And then here's this big rectangular craft hanging out, and it was really wild because I don't remember it leaving, and I don't remember it arriving. But I remember my finger following my finger, looking at it as it flew away.
Almost like Tracer, sort of?
Well, no, all I remember is my finger. I don't remember the craft leaving at all.
So it's almost like your memory was erased or something?
Yeah.
That's strange.
It gets really strange because right after that, we get off of the lifeguard stand that we were sitting there watching this thing, and we're like, oh my God, you know, we're freaking out, and we want to go tell everyone. So we go running over, and the funny thing about UFOs is nobody wants to hear about it, you know?
Well, and there's so many people that are so skeptical, which I think is completely ridiculous because there's so much information out there now that it's not even really considered paranormal anymore.
No, it's almost, I mean, you go down to Mexico, and it's just like, psh, yeah, no.
Well, I mean, everybody's government pretty much, you know, doesn't try to hide it from them except for ours.
Right.
Which is, I guess they don't think we can handle the truth.
Maybe. Yeah, we ended up walking back to the strip, the Daytona Strip, and there were no people. Like, the whole street was now empty. And we're just looking around. It was like the Twilight Zone. We're wondering, did everyone get abducted? What just happened? Are we landing on a different planet?
Wow.
It was completely empty. And so we decided just to head up towards the bar we were going to, and we finally ran into some kids coming our way, and we were like, hey, what time is it? And it was 3 in the morning. Now, when we had walked to the beach, it was 11.
Wow, that's a big time gap there.
And so we totally just lost all of that time. It seemed 10 minutes to us.
Wow.
So then years go by, and I moved to Lawrence, Kansas, and my friend that was with me is walking down the street in Lawrence, Kansas. And so I grab him and I bring him home, and he starts to tell the story, and you know, and I've told all my friends this story, and I was really excited because he was confirming the story without me bringing it up, and then he reminded me that when we got to my street, we couldn't recognize it, like we had been wiped of some sort.
Oh, wow.
And so we couldn't recognize where we were. I don't even know really how we got home. You know, you get home just by, you know,
Right.
without realizing how you're doing it, but.
So integrated into you,
Yeah.
you know, the way.
But so weird synchronicities in that this guy would appear in a place, you know, from Florida to Kansas, and there he is. It turns out his girlfriend's going to KU, and, you know, just happened to run into him.
Wow.
And so we both had this major experience. And I tried to then get hypnotic regression therapy to try and see what happened.
Right.
And nothing
Really,
so
nothing
far.
comes up.
Yeah.
Wow, and not even maybe in dreams, like, because I know sometimes when you sleep, some memories can come up. Anything like that, or?
Well, what started happening was that I started to recognize strange things on planet Earth, things that others weren't noticing, that were right in front of our eyes. And basically what I've discovered now is the extraterrestrial race is controlling planet Earth, and it all has to do with this picture.
Right.
Well,
Can I ask you one more
Sure.
question before we get started on that again? You mentioned earlier about recovered memories, and you were talking about the dancing bear. What exactly is that? Like, can you explain that a little bit? I don't understand it, and I'm sure other people may not
right.
fully understand. Is it almost like when for example, you're hypnotized and they say, okay, when you hear this certain word, you're going to do this. Is it almost kind of like that sort of thing? Like,
well, it's like somebody came in and put a memory over your memory. It's a memory in your head that makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, I got you.
Doesn't
so
fit
that's
into...
why it's something silly like the dancing bear, because you're like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay.
And, you know, even after witnessing, like, this giant rectangle, I still now it almost seems like a dream. It's like, it's not real anymore. You know, I have to almost convince myself that I actually saw this thing.
Right.
And that's a weird thing about the brain, you know.
Well, it is. I mean, I personally, I've been seeing spirits since I was a child.
Yeah.
And as a child, I never questioned it, you know, and I learned to shut it off because I get in a lot of trouble. But as I got older and it started coming back and I started seeing them again, I think, well, either I'm going crazy or I'm dreaming while I'm awake, or, you know, you
All
try
of
to
those
find
are
some
coping
logic.
mechanisms.
You try to
Right.
find a logic to it because it just does seem so bizarre.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit into what most people consider reality.
No, not at all.
So.
Well, give us a history. Like, when did this start happening? Give us a timeline of when all
Well,
this happened. And
Well, he said from the time he was a child, like,
Well,
is
what
it-
I
yeah, but I
found
just
out-
want to know, like, when was your first, like, memory of something like this happening, or you, like, where was your first memory of seeing anything that you might have thought might have been like related to your painting or anything that had to do with your abduction? Just give us a little bit of information.
All right. Well, what had happened was, as I started to discuss these things openly, you know, me and my friend that we've known each other since we were 6 months old used to always talk about the different craft we would see.
Right.
And honestly, I don't remember any of it now. I just
Really?
remember us talking about it.
Wow.
But then my dad chimes in, and he says, well, you know, flying saucers are real. And I was like, well, how do you know? And it turns out that my father, being worshipful master for the Freemasonic Lodge, was in Project Blue Book, chasing flying saucers for the government. And so now I find out that my whole family's involved, you know, and I'm thinking, wow. And as a child, I'm studying the pyramids, I'm studying abductions, UFOs, all of this, just
And
really...
you don't really know why, you're just very interested in it.
Exactly. And then it takes me years down the road to find out my dad's involved.
Well, explain to everyone what Project Blue Book is, because not everyone might know.
Project Blue Book was the first open investigation by the government into flying saucers, where they found that they could not classify many of the experiences people were having in any known fashion. That they basically proved that there were UFOs, that there were, but then they covered that all up and backtracked
Right.
everything, you
That's
know, and they were like,
like
whoa,
government,
whoa, yeah, we can't go telling,
They can't handle the truth.
yeah.
Well, was that like a document that was released to the public and then they took it back, or were they just doing this research undercover?
No, it was open. It was an
Okay.
open investigation. I have the Blue Book. So, and a lot of people think that the Project Blue Book was titled after the Urantia book. I don't know if you've ever been...
Never heard of it.
No.
That's
I
an
don't know that.
amazing thing to check out.
Yeah?
We won't go into that now because
Okay.
there's a lot more to get to. Well, so here I am. I'm finding that it's in my home life, you know, so it's not that far outside of the realms of possibility. It's, you know, here's my dad. And not only is my dad, you know, chasing flying saucers for the government, but he's a member of a secret society, a secret cult, if you were. And, well, what do we got going on here? Because I've had a couple of experiences. I was looking at what pictures I had going, because what I started discovering was the connections between all of this and the star Sirius.
Okay, we're not familiar with that, so
All right, well, let me
you don't
familiarize
have to
you.
explain us. Explain it to us.
If you could go to the number 4 picture. The Masons, the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, Aztecs, and I believe even in India, worship the star Sirius in many different ways.
Okay.
Oh, we skipped ahead a little bit, but that's okay.
It's
No,
one back.
no,
guys.
that one-
Oh, does that work?
Whoa, yeah. Oh, I must have them out of order. Okay, but this is all of my father's Freemasonic stuff, and then here is the Freemasonic symbol for Sirius.
Okay.
So the pentagram, or what they call the blazing star, is actually a symbol of Sirius. And you'll find this encoded in so many different ways that it starts to get really strange. The Egyptian hieroglyph for Sirius is an obelisk, a dome, and a pentagram. So now if we go downtown and you look at the goddess, okay, well, downtown there's the clock tower, and then the goddess standing there, and then the dome of the Capitol, and then it's got the goddess standing on top holding a pentagram.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a life-size Egyptian hieroglyph to the star Sirius.
Wow.
And what's even more curious is that the goddess herself is a symbol of Sirius.
Okay.
Isis is Sirius in the
Okay.
Egyptian pantheon, when she's known as Sothis. So all these links started coming together, trying to put this stuff together. I was thinking if
I didn't
we
know
could
she
go...
was holding a pentagram, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it gets even weirder if we could go to picture number 8.
I was going to say,
Okay.
in my hometown, it's interesting because there is a old cemetery and there is a gravestone that has the pentagram on it, and it, obviously, like he said, it's a Freemason symbol. But I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God,
crazy.
which time?
Right.
I was a kid, and I didn't know. I was probably about 10 or 11, so I didn't know. But I always thought it was so curious, and of course, as I got older and found out what he said is correct, it is a Freemason symbol.
Well, I often wonder what would happen if somebody from ancient past came into America today,
Oh, man, they
and the
would-
pentagrams everywhere, it's like Satan rules supreme, you know.
Right.
Well, so the extraterrestrial connections to the goddess has always been there. You got the ancient depiction of Inanna, and she seems to be dressed in a spacesuit with a helmet, holding what seems to be a vase or a grail of some sort. Next to her, you'll see Isis, which most people see as Virgin
Yeah, I was
Mary.
going to say, it looks like Virgin Mary.
But that's actually Isis, and she too is a symbol of Sirius.
Huh.
And then you'll see the Mary over to the side, and this is a Renaissance painting that has a flying saucer in the background.
I see it.
And there's a man standing there pointing at it, so it's not like, you know, it was meant to be there. And you can find these ancient depictions of UFOs throughout time.
I was going to say, I've seen them on cave paintings. I've seen them in...
How would you really know if that's a flying saucer in a cave painting, though?
You can see them pretty clearly, and then they will
If you
also
look
have a
it up.
gray-like or even space head suit
Really?
depicted with it, yeah.
Okay. Wow, okay.
And I don't know, you know, I think I was listening to Art Bell fairly recently, and they were saying the whole UFO and a Bible thing might be a myth, but, I mean, if you read the Bible, I mean, they talk about wheels of fire. I mean, that's the words they use for their time. I mean, but what would a wheel of fire be, you know, in the sky, or chariots of fire? So to me, that almost sounds like UFOs.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you got Moses following a giant column of smoke that turns into a column of fire by night, and then he's given the Ark of the Covenant, and he uses this as the first weapon of mass destruction against humanity. You know, yeah, totally. I would totally agree with that. So, as we start to look around us, we start to realize that maybe there was an extraterrestrial influence on the creation of civilization on planet Earth. Like, we've mined gold all this time, right?
Right.
But gold's not good for much.
Not
But it's
really.
really good for space travel.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You can't travel in space without gold.
Why is that?
They need to use it as a filter. Actually, they noticed that when the astronauts were going into space and they would face the galactic center, that they were receiving radiation that was putting symbols into their heads. And so they actually had to put a gold deflection shield onto the visors. They have a sheen of gold over the visors so it reflects all of that.
Is that why you see, like, the old school, like, when he's walking on the moon, it's all gold?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. It's wild.
And then also gold is in its monoatomic form, bringing it back to the Bible again, when after Moses comes down, builds the Ark of the Covenant, the first weapon of mass destruction, which also relates to the Freemasonic extraterrestrial connections. Then he finds them worshiping the golden calf, right?
Right.
And so he burns this golden calf and it turns to a powder. And this is very unusual because gold doesn't turn to a powder when you melt it, right? But there is a gold that comes under very high intense heat that's called monoatomic gold, which they are now finding has hyperdimensional properties. So then you can actually fold space-time with this monoatomic gold.
That's wild.
And that's some of the newer things that are coming out now.
You have to explain to me, how do you fold space-time?
So.
Right.
I told you we'd be picking your brain.
It's a lot like the dust from Dune, or the spice of Dune.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of the Dune story very apropos, because we've got the mythos that was placed here that seems to follow our religions. And that's what the Bene Gesserit witches would do, so that when they arrived on a strange planet, they'd be worshipped. And I think a lot of that's going on right now with the Pope and the Church, and I'll show you what I'm thinking. But monoatomic gold, I honestly don't know how it folds space-time, but what happens is once they put it through the process of superheating it and turning it into this white powder, then they find that the white powder has less weight than it should have, and it seems to be going, they lose weight in it all, but then they can bring it back and the weight will come back again.
That's weird.
Oh, okay, so that's what you're talking about.
So it goes into hyperspace. And so it turns out that this central picture here has to do with the hyperspatial dynamics.
So it wasn't actually a universe or a galaxy?
No, it turns out that it was a craft.
Wow.
And it was many years later. We could maybe jump to that video footage just to go ahead and
where's it at?
jump into that. They have it in there.
I know that. I don't know if we have to get to a certain number. Are you getting smart with it? No. Where was that?
It's right here. Yeah. They're in the right spot.
We lost it somewhere. Something happened. So you're now looking at the vast image of space.
Okay, well, consider our space shuttle titles. We'll take the picture in a little bit, and they'll get to us. If you consider our space shuttle titles, the Columbia Endeavor for the discovery of Atlantis. Right?
We're just concerned.
Oh, I know. I know how this goes.
Hey, we have them check our... There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so our space shuttle titles. Now these, all right, once you start to dig into the space shuttles, you start to dig into all of the different things with NASA, it brings you straight to the Nazis. Okay, NASA is funded, created through the Nazis. They brought all the Nazi scientists, rocket scientists over here from Project Paperclip, Werner von Braun, and the others that began NASA. And you immediately have to understand that we're dealing with the occult. Because that's what they're into, the Nazis, the Freemasons. They dabble in the occult world, magic. And so Jack Parsons was one of the lead persons to start modern rocketry, and he's a Satanist.
Didn't know that.
Yes. Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard together constantly tried to create what they call the Moonchild, which was to incarnate an entity into a baby.
Wow.
And L. Ron Hubbard Jr., yeah. Well, so these are the guys that are in charge of NASA.
Wow.
Okay, and JPL. Now, JPL put out, just recently, they called it Project Stardust. And they put out...
I've heard of that.
Have you? They launched 2 chips off into space, chasing a comet on a satellite. And then one chip was to meet with the comet, and the other one returned from space. And on the chip are 1 million names. Well, guess whose name I found on it? My entire family.
What?
You can go to JPL's, Jet Propulsion Laboratories website. You can look up Stardust microchip, and it says, are you on it? And you can search your name.
Well, why would your name be on it? I mean, what was the purpose of that?
My whole family's on it.
Well, I mean, what would be the purpose of the names being
I don't
on
know. You know, on one level, okay, the names on it are all of our straw men, the capital letter names that are all put on there. Why they would send it off to a comet and have one return. Now, it wasn't just the comet. It wasn't just Project Stardust, but it was also Project Phoenix, the one that went to the Mars.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Phoenix is another Masonic symbol in one of the occult. And Project Phoenix also brought 1 million names and chips to Mars.
Wow.
Now, the interesting thing was that I tested a few people, and I know another friend whose father also chased flying saucers in... Oh, I forgot the name of his project. I think it was Project Starlight. And he did psychic experiments with Uri Geller. This was my roommate that I moved in with here in Austin. And he didn't even know this about his dad until we went over for Thanksgiving dinner, and all of a sudden his dad's like, yeah, there's 57 different alien species. Oh, yeah, I know all about this. I've done all of this. And so he starts telling us all the same story that my father was telling, and, you know, there was this link. I forgot where I was going with that. What was
Well, we were asking, what would that mean if your name comes back on the chip?
Oh, right.
Like,
So,
like, what does that mean?
I had him check, and sure enough, his name was on there. He didn't find any other family members, and I had another friend who works for the government check, and his names were in there, but none of us had our father's names in there. Like, all of our fathers that were involved with the extraterrestrial stuff weren't listed. Honestly, I have no idea. JPL says that it was for public appreciation.
Oh.
That they were launching all these names up into space, you know, get your name in space or whatever. But why was there one chip going up and one coming back? Why send a chip into space with 1 million names and return it to Earth?
Strange.
But you can go straight to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory website and check
I could
it
see
out.
someone paying for that. Hey, I want my name in space.
Right.
Even if you didn't even know about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
spend money on ridiculous
Exactly.
things, so.
What the point would be of doing it with people were not aware, I'm not sure.
Well,
Another
So-
question, too.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No,
When
go
did
ahead.
you draw this? I mean, not to give away your age,
No, it
but
was-
this was before.
it was
Well,
1977.
now, but I mean, this was before any space shuttle had been made, right?
No, no.
Okay.
I grew up in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
And so I watched all of the rocketry, and my dad also built nuclear missiles.
Yeah, but when was the first space shuttle? Like,
You know, I'm not exactly sure what
because
year it
I
was.
mean, that's a pretty new development, you know, because they were sending people up and they would come down, but not in space shuttles.
Yeah,
right?
this must have been right at the beginning of it. And
Okay.
I know it's right before Star Wars because these would have ended up being X-Wings. And I would have totally lost the message
You would've been
altogether.
influenced by-
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because the message in this was so amazing that it's consumed me for all this time. And now I've done
Right.
4 years of TV shows just basically on this.
That's wild.
And so we're looking at a couple of extraterrestrial races dealing with planet Earth. Once you get into exopolitics and start to study the races that are ruling planet Earth, you come up with the Alpha Draconans, which are commonly known as the reptilians,
Okay.
and then the Syrians, who, strangely enough, are the fish people.
Wow.
And so there was a tribe, an ancient tribe in Mali, Africa. I don't know if you want to go back to that Dogon picture.
I think they said that the tape is not working for some reason. It's
My
kind of a
tapes never
bummer.
work. Yeah.
Aw, bummer.
No, this is constant for
Alex
me.
worked hard on that message.
Aw.
But picture number 3.
Oh, wait. Looky
Okay.
there. Yay!
Yeah, the pictures work. The video is what we want to show is the
Oh,
Columbia.
okay.
So what I found was there was this ancient tribe of Aboriginal Africans in Mali, Africa, and this was in a book called The Sirius Mystery, and they had their mysterious religion given to them by the fish people. And they also taught them their building techniques, and so they build sandcastles, as you can see.
Right.
But they have this inner knowledge, and this secret mystery is of the star Sirius. Now here's a bunch of Aboriginal Mexicans, Mali Africans, that have no telescopes, have nothing, but they know the orbital pattern of Sirius.
That's wild.
And when asked how they knew this, they said the fish people, what they called the nomos, came up out of the water and would teach them, and then they would slither back into the water. Well, if you look in the left-hand side there, the symbol that the fish people gave for the symbol for Sirius was the exact same symbol I drew on every single space shuttle. Before, 18 years before I ever saw the symbol of the Dogon, I had drawn it on this picture, and you can see the picture in the background there. Was totally flabbergasted when
That's
I'm
amazing.
reading the book, and I'm like, no way. And, in all my life, I've lost everything I've ever had, but I still have this damn picture. And I run and I grab it, and I still have the book, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this, it's exact. And then you look at the space shuttle titles, the Columbia Endeavor for the discovery of Atlantis, you find that there's this hidden coded mystery. And NASA's symbol, of course, is the blazing pentagram, which is the Mason symbol for Sirius. So it all fit. But the spiral galaxy in the middle is what was throwing me off.
Right.
Now, what happened was that in 1973, Robert Anton Wilson and Timothy Leary had contact from extraterrestrials. And guess where they were from?
Serious?
Sirius. Yes.
Wow.
And so I'm getting contacts from Sirius. He's getting contacts from Sirius. The Egyptians are worshiping Sirius. Everybody's looking at Sirius. And so we're not going to be able to get the film to play? Is that no? Okay, that's too bad, because it turns out that there was an experiment with the Space Shuttle Columbia. And they were trying to come up with a new energy field. And so they used this long tether that came out of the space shuttle.
Yes.
And it drew so much energy from the universe that it actually snapped the tether and it floated off. Well, it looked like a big fluorescent light bulb out in space.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, all over the place are these little flying
We've
crabs.
seen that, actually,
Yes,
yeah.
I showed her. I've seen that footage, and it's amazing. I mean, oh, they may have.
You might try it again.
All right, let's see it.
Let's roll that
Awesome.
footage.
There we go.
And how long is this tether?
The tether actually is very long.
It's miles.
Yeah.
Like
To
10
give you an
miles.
example, it was estimated that each one of these craft are 2 to 3 miles in diameter.
Yeah, what's interesting about it to me is the bigger ones that are blinking, you can tell that there's a centerpiece actually blinking.
Yeah. They seem to be hyperdimensional. You can actually, in some of the video footage, see right through them. And they actually come down over Mali, Africa, which I didn't bring that film clip, but you can see it on FreemanTV.com. They actually form a circle over Mali, Africa, and you can watch them float over the horizon. It's pretty amazing, but they're translucent, or you can see right through them. What happened was that another scientist or researcher was looking into this, and he's the one who released this footage, David Sereda.
Yeah.
And he used the spiral that you'll see later once we get a close-up of one of these craft. The spiral in there is what keyed him into hyperdimensional physics.
Oh, okay.
And so all of a sudden this spiral became very important. And all of a sudden as David Sereda was drawing his spiral showing the hyperdimensional physics that he derived from this Columbia space shuttle footage, I recognized what the heck was in the middle of my picture.
Yes.
Well, it got even weirder than that, because you'll notice when we get a close-up of the craft that there's a little notch in the head of the craft. And that little notch is actually right there.
Oh, wow.
And so if you look at one of these here, see it in
there's
front?
a big one
there you
there.
go. See
Yeah.
the notch in there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually even in my picture as well.
Wow.
Okay, so what are you saying that this is with the notch?
A UFO.
Yeah, but it's a UFO.
I mean, some of that you can see, it's debris going by.
Well, yeah,
Well, that's
but
what they
I'm
wanted
just
you
saying.
to think.
But the bigger ones, right? The bigger ones. You
Well, I
see
mean, but
them
the one
all.
that's like that, because that's supposed to be
They're actually all the same craft.
serious right there, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Actually, what happened was David Sereda started doing a little deeper research into the mythology of the whole thing, and he came up with the idea that they were from Sirius.
Oh, okay.
And so, well, what I had here was an image of hyperdimensional spatial physics at 10 years old.
That's amazing.
Not having a clue as to what I'm drawing, but it got deeper. There's
Wow.
more to this story.
Okay.
Obviously, I mean, that's wild.
Is it?
I mean, it's amazing. I've seen that footage, and you know, how can you not say there's UFOs? Oh, come on.
Well, what was great in that footage is listening to the astronauts trying to pretend like it's not going on.
Oh, well, I've read some of the stuff that they were saying, like, Houston, what the hell is that? And they're like freaking out and stuff. And you know, Houston's like, well, what are you seeing? And they're like, oh my God, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, and I realized that those are, but I thought that this was a representation of Sirius itself.
No.
But no, it is,
It's that craft.
it's that craft. Okay.
And it wasn't
because on
until-
the film I realized those are crafts. But,
Right.
okay, right on. I got
Yeah,
you.
I didn't realize it either. You know, I thought I had drawn a spiral galaxy is what I
Yeah,
thought.
well-
But when I saw the craft, and I can actually lay a picture of the craft right over that, and it's identical in shape, size, everything. The little notch, everything else is all there.
Crazy.
It's cool.
So to try and start to piece things together, we'll save the spiral for last. We'll get to that. Let's look at the exopolitical ideas of what's going on. So we have two extraterrestrial races ruling planet Earth, according to exopolitical studies, and this is by Dr. Michael Sala. And he compiled from whistleblower data and from scientific and from military what 57 alien species are interacting with planet Earth and their interrelations with us.
Okay.
So when we're looking at aliens, it's a long list of aliens to deal with. But there are two races that were registered as ruling planet Earth. Basically a marriage of these two solar systems came together to rule planet Earth, and they basically have been ruling under that same format all along. So just real quick, if we could go to picture number 9, Draco versus Sirius. Well, these are all the different representations of the fish goddess, Isis, who is, you can also see Sirius Radio. I find all of this incorporated in, I was hoping for the other one, but the other Pope and Queen one, before we get to that one.
So,
I had them, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So the fish people, I mean, because some people are going to think that sounds really strange.
Yeah.
Would some people, like, I don't know, think they were mermaids?
Mermaids. I was trying to say they look like mermaids.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So would some people, gosh, it's so hard to explain it, isn't it? Because, I mean, you could tie in, you know, some people believing that mermaids are actually a water spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't even know how to begin to
Yeah.
know what I'm trying to say.
Well, have a look, because what we're looking at here are the two main symbols of the two churches ruling planet Earth. You got the Church of London and the Church of the Vatican. Okay? City of London is an independent city-state, the Vatican's an independent city-state, and Washington, D.C. is an independent city-state. They are not part of any nation. They're their own. And if you look towards their symbolism, well, first of all, we've got the dragon with the queen. And these are the Alpha Draconans. That is their symbol of the reptile.
So you're saying the queen's a reptile?
No, I'm saying she
kidding.
rules
She's an alien.
for the reptiles.
Okay. No.
And then you
She's
look
not
at
an alien, but
well, there is something to the whole genealogy of it all. There is something to the royal blood and the reason that they are monarchies. I mean, there is a DNA connection to this whole thing. So yeah,
they have very little power at this point. I mean, like the monarchy in England. I mean, the Church of England maybe more, but I mean, as far as like the monarchy, they don't have a whole lot of power anymore, do they?
outwardly.
Okay.
But, you know, we've got the Bilderbergs and the secret meetings and the things that are going on behind the scenes.
Okay. They probably do everything behind the scenes as opposed to outwardly. Okay.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
Yeah. They, well, but then you saw the Pope in his fish hat and the Dagon.
It does look like, yeah.
So the fish people have been through the Bible, the cult of Dagon.
It's mentioned in the Bible?
Oh, sure.
Like
yeah, the
how?
ancient Sumerians, Enki was a fish god, and Inanna was a fish goddess.
Okay.
Right out in front of the Capitol here, if we could jump back to the very last picture, right outside here, you've got merfolk, or we could talk about that. Okay, well, here's what the scientists came up with. Dr. Sala came together. Oh, all right.
It's okay.
So
We're working on it.
Right out front here at the Capitol, you know, where the clock tower is. Well, as I explained to you, as an Egyptian hieroglyph for Sirius. Well, in between it, you find our goddess, Columbia, who is a representation of the goddess Isis, who is Sirius, and she's on a boat being drawn forth by fishmen riding fish horses.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's right there in front of us, you know, the Starbucks logo. Now I've started to find like fish monster caduceus, which is a symbol of DNA, and started getting into some of the DNA and the hyperspace things that connected with this. So right in front of us, what you got to realize is that you may not believe in merfolk or in Atlantis, but the Masons do. And they're the ones in charge of planet. You know, they're the ones in charge of Washington, D.C. They're the ones that put pentagrams in the street plans.
And it's one of those things, too, I think, where, you know, our culture has been so, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but as far as when it comes to religion and magic and merfolks or whatever, I mean, we're taught that that's utterly ridiculous. You know, there's no such thing as this and there's no such thing as that. So over the centuries, we've almost come to the point where so many people don't believe it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a whole conspiracy within itself, you know.
Well, it's hard for some people to believe something that doesn't come right out in front of their face. I mean,
Right.
like, have you ever really seen a mermaid?
Yeah.
No. So, I mean, it's, you know.
Yeah,
so there you go.
that's true, that's true.
So,
But
it's...
yet, we can find them throughout cultures all over the world.
Exactly, that's true too. And the dragons as well.
And the dragon as well, exactly. And you have these...
I was listening to Artville, and they were just talking about that the other night.
yeah?
Really?
Yeah, they were. They're talking about dragons and actually unicorns. Which,
Yeah.
Unicorns are sweet.
all over the world.
Well,
All
consider-
cultures have some sort of dragon or unicorn.
Really? Wow.
And the unicorn was actually a really bizarre one.
That is bizarre.
It was, because it's not the cute little furry horse thing with the horn. I mean, it's actually a little bit more devious than what...
Like the fairies aren't as sweet as
Yeah,
people
right?
think that they are.
So.
Well, when you realize that we're just discovering certain tribes of humans on the surface of planet Earth,
Right.
we have not seen 90% of the ocean's floor.
That's true.
There could be a lot going on down there. And USOs are as popular as UFOs.
Yeah.
And subterranean creatures like the greys, the reptiles, we wouldn't know about them. But yet they just announced all these subterranean complexes that they've been founding under the Giza Plateau, under South and Central America. Tunnels that couldn't have been created at the time that we believe they were created, which was 10,000 years ago.
Right.
That have perfectly smooth walls. There's a lot of evidence on planet Earth that there's more going on here than
It's true.
we know.
So is these three races of aliens that are ruling Earth, do like people here, like the Queen or the Pope or, you know, like our president, do they know what's going on?
Well, here's the deal. Probably not.
Probably not.
What happens is most of the communication with these beings is done through occult ritual. So when Robert Anton Wilson had his connection with Sirius, he was doing an occult ritual on hallucinogens. And then he tried it again without hallucinogens and actually got a better message. Timothy Leary did the same thing with meditation, and they made contact. Aleister Crowley in Giza did the very same thing, doing a channeling experiment and contacted Sirius. And his whole persona is based off Sirius. His secret name was Phoenix, which had to do with Sirius. And he channeled what was known as the Book of the Law, which is a book that's very strange, very unusual, and talks about a lot of violence, and it's almost like the anti-Bible in a way, but it's housed right next to the goddess, the fish people, the merfolk.
Yeah.
And it's stored here in the Harry Ransom Center on campus, is Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law. His handwritten version is here, and that's a channeling from Iwas, an Atlantean who is also from Sirius. So most of the communication that we find is through channeling, and if
Okay, that's what I started to say. I didn't think that, you know, like the president was actually talking, but I just wondered if they had like some kind of proof through, you know, if anybody had had any contact and was actually contacting these people that were, you know, in high power and like telling them this is what I believe and them subscribing to this belief and then going from there.
There definitely were earlier back in the days with Eisenhower and the connection. He had a strange toothache and took off in the middle of the night and actually went to a Florida base and met with Greys there. And that was when they were supposed to have sold us off to the Greys for experiments, and in return they got high technology. Now, I personally don't think the Greys are from outer space. I think they're subterranean Earthlings. I do believe they exist, and I think they're underground. And if you start to look at the technology they gave us, like computers, you'll realize that every single thing inside of a computer is subterranean. The quartz crystal that powers your computer, it generates the speed. And the gases, the silicon that go out with gold, and everything in it is subterranean. You know, computers are subterranean technology.
There was a certain point in history where technology just, man, took off.
Yeah. Well, look where we're at today. Now they're using magnetics to collide particles and open a wormhole, or trying to open a portal in Switzerland.
We have talked about that, yeah.
And did you happen to notice their logo? 666?
Really?
Uh-huh.
How is it? Is it just
I didn't bring that picture, but you can go to freemantv.com and check it out.
Like
yeah,
where all the
it's 3 sixes all coming together with a hyperspatial portal. Mm-hmm. I find a lot of 666s encoded into these occult.
Procter and Gamble. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. My mom flipped out in the 80s because this.
Well, yeah, but I think that was
Procter and Gamble products where you connect the stars on their logo and it makes 666.
Yeah, but that was an urban legend.
No, I find it all through.
Really?
No, you'll
What do you
find
think,
666
they
encoded
accidentally
all
made it
over the
that
place.
way?
Well, no, I don't think so. Accidentally made it that way, but I mean, you know, it's
Sex on the Ritz was actually
yeah, that
the Ritz cracker.
was for real.
Yeah. No. Okay. So anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking
No,
to
it's
see
okay.
where we could go with all
Kind of
that.
sidetracked
No
a
callers?
little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have the number up actually.
Oh, we
So,
need a
we could
number
go
would
to
you
that.
like to put the number
Sure.
up? Okay. Well, we can go ahead and put up the number, and that way, if somebody would like to call in and share thoughts.
Basically, so now I've started to take this study out and take it into the world and have a look at things. And so I have a presentation I do called The Sorcerers of Atlantis.
Right. Yes.
And I was on my way to Portland to give this lecture. And on our way, we got diverted into Ogden, Utah.
Wow.
Now, Ogden, Utah is curious for a couple of reasons. One, that the giants, the Nephilim, the ancients of the Bible, were from the land of Og. And so Ogden made me think of the den of giants. Then we pull in and we're routed straight over to a Mormon temple.
Wow.
And of course the Mormons are an extraterrestrial cult. If you start getting deeper and deeper into their belief system, they believe that you get to be God of your own planet. Battlestar Galactica is the Mormon creation myth. You know, you start getting deeper and deeper into that. So now we're in this,
Really? I've never heard that.
We're in the den of Og, next to the Mormon temple, all these extraterrestrial connections, and we had to make 5 lefts to get back onto the highway. And my friends, being magicians with me, because we're going to a magical conference, are like, they're putting us through a pentagram ritual, those nasty Mormons. Because we had to do a pentagon to get out. And some people have asked me what they released out of the Pentagon when they blew it up. But that's a curious thought. But so as we're leaving out of Ogden, back on Highway 84, heading north towards Portland, I see what looks like a giant planet, off, almost like Venus looks now. Have you seen Venus and Jupiter these last few?
Yes,
Oh my
they're
God!
Very bright. Yes.
So it was even bigger than that, though, and I see it off in the distance, and I tell everybody in the car, you know, hey, have a look at this thing. And so we watch this orange dot floating in the sky, and it comes closer and closer, and all of a sudden we can see it's a line of orbs.
Wow.
And so soon it flew right over our car, and I'm filming the whole time. But all I get on film is me cussing. Because I'm like, it's a bleeping triangle, you know? And so I film this whole thing, and it flies directly over the car, and I film it as it goes over the other way. Nothing on film.
No way.
Yeah.
That is such a bummer.
Ah, it kills me. Just kills me, you know? Because that's why I carry my camera all the time now. And it didn't show it.
Wow, that's
Kills
wild.
But then I get to Portland, I meet the high priest of the Church of Satan, and he talks about his portal open, or his device to open a portal for the old ones to enter. Like, when you start getting into the occult... Yeah, exactly.
They don't need that. Apparently they're already doing it. Just kidding.
When you start getting into these Satanist types in the occult, you start to realize that that's what they're into, is, you know, out there and in there, in hyperspatial portals. So, anyway, we got a call.
So we have a caller. Let's go ahead and
go
hear
ahead to the caller.
We got the caller. Let's see it. Hello, caller?
Yes. I would like to know if Freeman has any feelings about the Beatles being extraterrestrial. The spirit of knowing the other side of paranormal, such as hallucinations, the spirit of opening up, bringing us all together to propel us into the future, such as meeting an extraterrestrial. I call them human gods.
Oh, well, actually, Uri Geller just started a new show in Germany, I believe it was. I have a lot of fans in Germany. And
well, I don't want to say anymore. I'm going to let you talk. Thank you very much.
all right.
Thank you.
Well, let me just throw that out there because, yeah, you find this connection with, well, what I term as mind control slaves. Which is like Britney Spears, Madonna,
Yeah, I saw something
John
on your website
Lennon.
about that.
Yeah, I did quite an expose of the mind control slave during the Britney Anna Nicole scenario, which will blow your mind if you check it out, I swear. But so here I'm watching, I get alerted to the fact that Uri Geller is starting a new television show. They're getting into ancient astronauts and all of this. And now I told you my friend's dad worked with Uri Geller on psychic experiments to make contact with extraterrestrials. Well, he comes in and he starts telling this story of how John Lennon called him up and asked him to come over. So Uri Geller goes over to John Lennon's house, and John drops this gold ball in his hand, which weighed a whole lot more than it should. He showed it on the TV show, and he's like, yeah, John Lennon told me that an extraterrestrial gave this to him. And so, you know, here was this gold orb, which Uri said he refused to do any searches on it or studies because he didn't want to. He wanted to believe it really was a UFO or an extraterrestrial thing. He didn't want to find out any different. But then I met Paul Laffoley, the Twin Tower architect that designs time machines for a living, who has a chip in his head that the aliens are transmitting all this information through. If you want to go to picture 17, I don't know, Thanaton, I'll show you one of Paul Laffoley's artworks. Now, I met Paul Laffoley, and he has a chip in his head, and he's getting all this information on how to build time machines, how to do... And this is the Twin Tower architect, okay? He's the guy that worked on, like, floors 38 to 42 or something. You know, and that's me with Paul Laffoley, and he's telling me about...
Which one are you?
Yeah.
I think he's the one with the hair.
I think so. He's telling me about Elvis and Elvis's extraterrestrial
I love
connections.
Elvis.
Yeah, Elvis was visited many times by golden beings and light beings, and so he's there telling me all about Elvis and Elvis's extraterrestrial connections right there. So when we start getting into rock and roll, and you can definitely, there's a huge, there's actually a book called UFOs and Rock and Roll, and you can find, yeah.
What would be the point in that, by the way? Why would why would aliens want to have,
Probably help influence, right? To help influence.
Well, once again, many of the rock and rollers are into the occult. David Bowie is a member of the OTO, which is Crowley's original, well, it wasn't Crowley's beginning, but he took over the Ordo Templi Orientis, which national headquarters are here in Austin. So a lot of times you'll find that Madonna, Prince, Britney, Christina Aguilera, even Ashton Kutcher are all practicing Kabbalah, Kabbalah. And they're generating contact with ETs and the general.
Kabbalah, I didn't have any ET messages.
You got to get into the rituals. You got to be like Madonna and go down with the priest.
Drink only Kabbalah water.
Yeah. Wear your little red bracelet.
There you go. I was doing it wrong.
But I think that the trauma that they go through,
Well, go ahead if you want to go.
opens portals in the mind, just like the DMT.
Yeah, we've actually talked about that before, opening portals, that a person can be a portal.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of almost a channel.
Yeah. And there's a study right now to see whether people that have higher DMT production actually are the ones that see UFOs more often.
Wow.
So I figure I must have a lot of DMT going on.
Oh, man. We actually have another caller. You want to take him?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's take our other caller. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I got a question for
I recognize
that
this
fellow
voice.
gentleman that actually been talking a lot about some good stuff. I was going to ask, what's your opinion on, like, UFOs possibly around when it comes to 2012? Like, where, have you ever read about Nostradamus? It's something that, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but his prediction about something will come from the sky to help us come down and, all that kind of, I'm sure you read about a little bit about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I just went down and performed a ritual with the Mayans for the winter solstice, and I asked them about that. Well, let me jump back first to that 1013 was the day that the goddess, or Mary, contacted the children of Fatima. And they were given the prophecies, 3 prophecies, and the third one has been held. I don't remember exactly the details of the first 2, but they seem to have come true, but the third one was held back. If you start to look into the story of the Fatima goddess, or Mary's apparition, then it's very much like a UFO story. She comes out of a golden orb and then transmits messages. And this Mary story goes back and back and back, and of course we can get back to Isis and Sothis and the connections to Sirius again. The Wizard of Oz, the Glinda the Good Witch, she comes down, the little bubble pops up, and she's, a representation of Sirius. So, as I started looking into what possibly could come from all of this, I did ask the Mayans. All I can say to that is that I have an interview going up on Google very soon of the Mayans' answer to that question about the extraterrestrials, and that there do seem to be major sightings like the Fatima case, and then well, there's been some other major ones. The eclipse. There was a major eclipse, and it seemed as if a craft placed itself right in the midst of the eclipse because it knew thousands of people would be watching. It's almost like they're making themselves known.
I think you asked when that was.
I don't remember. I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for that one.
Well, I guess what calendar is the Gregorian calendar that there's no, after 2012, there's...
Supposedly there's nothing, right?
There's nothing.
Well, that was
they
the...
just haven't updated.
No, that was
They just haven't updated.
the Mayan long count calendar that some have decided ends on December 21st, 2012. Now, when I was discussing this with the Mayans, they do believe it, and so they have given me a place in their subterranean chambers to survive starting next year. They're expecting the catastrophes to begin. Wow. Now, what we're looking at here, and I did bring some pictures of the sun, but we won't get time to show those because I put them on a different file.
Oh, okay.
But what we're realizing is that right now, at this time, the sun is going crazy. We don't know why. Some Russian astrophysicists are believing that we're entering an interstellar energy cloud. That all the planets in the system are warming. It's not just Earth. It's not a carbon-based warming system. The whole thing is warming. The sun has been erupting out of character with major solar eruptions 300 times what any of the scientists predicted back in 1999. And then there have been these giant craft, which you can look up, called the Sun Chaser, that were floating around the sun, which must have been a massive craft because the size of it compared to the sun. I mean, it's still only that big, but, the sun's huge.
Yeah.
So this, and I wish I'd put the picture in there, but there's actually a photon beam shooting out of the sun. And this is all straight from the solar satellite that NASA has up there. JPL has the SOHO satellite. And I watch this avidly. So what we're watching is as our solar system is coming back to the galactic center, we're coming back to the beginning of the precession of the equinox, the beginning of the great year, and we're entering into an energy field that's throwing everything into chaos, storms, weather, the sun, and of course our military are all going deep underground and building doomsday vaults in Norway, in the mountains. So yeah, I think something big is coming, and hopefully there will be some help from out there because I think we're going to need it. And if you go back to the ancient stories of the Sumerians, we're at the same place where they were then when the great crustal shift seemed to have occurred and many were wiped from the face of the planet, but the gods, quote unquote, were orbiting the planet and then, got to eat because of Noah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're back where we began, when we're back at the beginning where everything's about to go into crazy chaos.
It just keeps going on.
Yeah.
Continuous.
But it's 26,000 years, so, we got a while till the next time.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But yes, absolutely, extraterrestrials have a huge influence on life as we know it today. It's just that nobody's really recognizing it, and if you start to look deeper into the picture, you'll realize that our governments are ruled by extraterrestrial sources.
Wow.
Or at least that's what I believe and try to prove.
Right. Well, I mean, you still have a lot of notes we didn't even get to.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to come back next week and pick up where you left off?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Awesome. That would be great, because this is interesting. Definitely. We're going to be wrapping it up here in a little bit. Is there anything else you wanted to go over?
Well, yeah, we can get to this stuff. Later on. Okay, well, if we want to go just looking towards the Draco versus Sirius again, I think it's number 9.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, we really have time.
Have that much time, yeah.
But I was going to show you how the inner races play, and how, as we start to look at the picture, it's okay.
Are we like the pawns?
Yeah. Well, what are we doing on planet Earth? You know, what do we do?
Right.
We mine this planet for resources.
Right.
We take gold out of the ground and we stick it in vaults. Why? You know, we're conditioned to believe it has some sort of value, but it's just an ore. It's just a, you know.
Yeah, it is kind of bizarre